Welcome to Chat with Leaders. Our mission is to give resilient servant leaders a platform to share the inspiring things they're doing to lead their teams, customers, and themselves wisely. I'm today's host, Jeff Bond, Director of Client Services at AppBerry in Atlanta, Georgia, where we develop custom web and mobile apps. I am so proud to welcome Stacey Howell in Atlanta as today's guest. She is the CEO and Executive Director of Every Woman Works, which is a remarkable organization here in Atlanta with a heart and a mission to improve women's situations from dependency to self-sufficiency. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here and appreciate what you're doing in the middle of this pandemic and getting voices heard and keeping people encouraged. So I'm just graciously appreciative of the invitation. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the affirmation. It's been really great for me to be inspired by leaders, and that's the purpose of this show. And thank you so much for putting your background image on for Every Woman Works. And I always love the B pin that you wear there. I remember sitting with you at a chamber event, and I was next to you and really took notice to that. And it's such a remarkable example of how you wear that on your heart every day. Tell me a little bit more about your company and your journey into leadership.
So I'm not the founder. I came in 14 years later when the founder retired, Miss Tilly O'Neill-Kiles, and I've been here now going on 4 years as the CEO, Executive Director. And the B just represents improbable does not mean impossible. And if you see it, it's a larger B holding a smaller B. And what we believe is that we're giving people wings to be their best selves. Through trauma, through barriers in life. So our mission is to move women from dependency to self-sufficiency so that they can get back on their feet after trauma, depression, sex trafficking, pandemics, domestic violence, whatever that trauma may be or any barrier that stands in the way. And everyone goes through something in life. And if you haven't yet, you just haven't lived long enough. And realizing that we're no different, but sometimes adversity is our biggest lesson.
You said improbable doesn't mean impossible. I think that was golden right there. And I really find that now we are in such a state of adversity that we've all been thrusted into. And for a long time, we've been in a great economy. We've all been very blessed with just fortune and privilege. And there's times where we're knocked off our feet. And those are great stories to see how these adversities in our lives have turned into that seed of equal or greater opportunity. And oftentimes great leaders have had that perspective. We've all been there, had the fall, where we've had to dust off and really rethink our purpose. And you're very purpose driven. I love your background. I know you come from a legacy of building community and giving back. Tell me a little bit about your why.
I think it's the diversity or dichotomy of how I was brought up. And you looked at my bio and you saw that my grandparents were also into philanthropy. So it's part of my DNA. But I also was a child of divorce, and my parents had grown in two different directions. My mom was a factory worker. My dad was an attorney, and my dad followed the footsteps of my grandfather was an attorney. And I think living in two worlds, and when they divorced, I lived with my mom, and I was in a working class neighborhood, but I had the backing of a father who was a professional, so I had access, so I had exposure, but everyone around me in my neighborhood did not. And I was always a child that was like, why? And so I went on to an Ivy League college. I graduated Cornell, but at some points it was like living in two worlds sometimes. And I realized that some of us have more than others, but it doesn't make us better than anybody else. It's just the way the world is structured and economy and stuff. And if people had the same, they could rise above just like anyone else. But those opportunities don't exist for everyone. So I felt like I was blessed with so many opportunities, but to me, I digested that to mean that I was supposed to give back. So everything that was gifted to me was a source for me to give back. I thought that I was going to adopt children, and I did not formally adopt children, but my house became that center point for kids. I had 4 children of my own and other kids in the neighborhood. I became the Kool-Aid house. and I have what I call adopted children in my life. But when that didn't happen, what I feel like is my course of life and my career, I always did philanthropy. When I was working for Hewlett Packard, I ran for political office, and as a communicator, I said I was going to use my voice for those who didn't have a voice. So that was my platform, was education and empowerment. So I've always been about empowering women to empower their children and families. And I utilized that platform. And so when I was out of work and I got laid off from Hewlett Packard and trying to find my way, and with my political background and experience, nonprofit fit. So I was told that I should cast my net to the right and all the fish would come rushing in, like the disciples. So I did that, and that's exactly what happened. And it's almost like this is where I was supposed to be. Everything that I did in my life, I utilize in this role, with leadership, developing relationships, budgeting, fundraising, strategy setting, everything, and then the heart of philanthropy. So I was purposed to be here in this present moment.
Well, I love it when that intersection of purpose and passion finds itself, and it's very clear to me your passion just comes through so authentically, and it's great to have you serving our community in such a meaningful way. And you talked a little bit about education and development, and certainly with more remote working and the social distancing, we've had to rethink the way we operate our businesses. And I know you were very hands-on with the women that you serve. And so how have you had to make changes and adjustments to the way you're modeling your business and delivering your services and impacting these women's lives?
So we host 6 5-week curriculum courses a year in classroom style. And when COVID hit and we realized, like, okay, we don't know who's coming in with what, in and out of the classroom, we need to take everyone home and figure this out. And immediately we shut down the classroom after we were in the midst of 2 weeks with the women. Everyone had just gotten to know each other, our class number 2 for the 2020 cohort. And we went home, and my staff and I figured out within a week and a half's time that we needed to pivot online. And what would that take? So I went to the board, and our board, we put out a call for computers because we didn't want to take them from our lab and then not have some later for whatever reason. So we put a call out for computers. Chick-fil-A responded. They got us 20 computers, sent them by mail. They came to the office. One of my staff went to the office, picked them up. We scrubbed them, did whatever we had to do to get them loaded and ready. We dropped them off at the recovery house that we were supporting the women from so that they could have access. And we used Zoom, and we went online, and we never lost a beat in our curriculum. And I tell you, when then the PPP was coming on, and we got ourselves together, and we applied, and we got money, but it was like, it was a fury of action that had to take place. But our driver was the fact that we were dealing with women, 14 women in our class who were in recovery. And we had to pivot because all I could think is they were already feeling some instability. And if we don't touch them, they're going to get lost. And so we had to do what we had to do. So before the computers arrived, we were connecting with them on Zoom by phone. They were on their phones. So that was the driver to get to these women. And when we got to them that Monday, they were talking about being depressed, feeling overwhelmed, isolated. And it was imperative that we touch them every day, because we start with an inspirational moment in our class, and we utilize that to uplift and encourage. And they were hooked every day, and they came every day for the 6 weeks. We ended up having to extend it to 6 weeks. They've now transitioned to their job search. 7 of them have already been employed in the midst of COVID-19. When everyone thinks everything is shut down, these women I've interviewed and gotten jobs, and they're at work.
I've had chills multiple times while you're talking over here, and I just love it. I mean, to be inspired that way, and to hear that great news. And it's funny, you talked about there being a flurry of activity, and we've been forced to innovate and think quickly on our feet because we never saw this coming. If only we had that sense of, I guess, necessity at all times. You know, I guess it would be
Oh my
exhausting if
God.
we were always feeling that, but it's forced us to really think differently. And so as you've kind of gone through the fire and you've come out and you've seen these positive results and the impact of these women finding work, it's something to be proud of. What are some of the positives? It's hard to look at a pandemic as positive, but what are some of the positives that you've seen as a result?
So when I talk about the fury of activity, we had to get online. We had to decide what courses we had to drop or what could actually go online that could be teachable. We had to get more volunteers to come in and help teach because that's how we do it, through facilitators. We had to reach out. We had just hired a volunteer coordinator. And because people were at home looking for something to do, we had more volunteers flowing through Zoom and coming in with us to do this. We had to engage in creative fundraising. We just did Giving Tuesday now, a couple weeks ago, and in the past. And when we took advantage of that, we created a Cinco de Mayo because it fell on the same day. So we created an online celebration. We invited to people to come. We did a silent auction. We were on the phone trying to figure out services and programs that would allow us to host virtual fundraisers, complete the PPP, go for the EIDL grants that were helping us with addressing emergency funds, and pivot and get online all at one time. And we did all of that. It showed the strength of my team. It showed our ability to pivot and reinvent, and how EWW could withstand a crisis, and has now moved us into the genre of thinking ahead. And we're now thinking we can expand. We wanted to expand into other counties, and we're now thinking that we can go online and reach an even wider impact by doing so, because we're doing it. We showed that we could do it, and we can open our doors up for a reentry back to work strategy for Atlanta first, and then the rest of the country. So we expect to be at the core of helping to rebuild our city. And we want to meet with the mayor. We want to be part of a task force, because when the Department of Labor has shut down doing resume writing classes and stuff, we're still doing it. And that's what people can be focusing on now to prepare in order, and so that helps relieve the stress and the depression of I don't know what to do. We give them a sense of, hey, let's figure out what your next step's going to be. Let's get you in that go forward path and your value exchange, and help reinvent you. So come online, take our class, and let's be prepared when the doors open.
What an inspiration. You said to me the other day that dealing with trauma with these women, you talk about employment being the stabilizer. And it's so great, but you guys are doing so much more than just putting them into a place of employment. You're changing their lives, you're pouring into them, you're building confidence, you're coaching them to accept fear and adversity and turn that into hope and opportunity. That's a message that we all need to hear right now, because a lot of us feel scared around the pandemic and the recovery and the new normal. So what is it that you do? What's kind of the secret sauce that you've seen be successful in coaching those that have been successful in seeing that hope and opportunity and turning that into something special?
That's a good question, Jeff. You know what it is? First, thank you for acknowledging that, because that's our differentiator. We are public health advocates who are dealing with trauma every day. That's our niche. So when COVID-19 hit, this is our niche. We deal with trauma, and how trauma affects people varies. And so you can shut down, you can get overwhelmed, it's hard to get up and go. And so this whole piece of us doing the reentry job going forward fits right into our wheelhouse. What we do really is just build confidence. I used to think that I was really coming in to make a impact on poverty. And then 15 years ago, this organization, Women We Served, were 100% poverty, but that's not so. There are women like myself, high educated women who've lost their jobs, who've come to a point in life where they have to pivot, what have you, and find their way. So we build confidence, and we help them realize their purpose. I'm an avid academia study of Steve Covey, 7 Habits, and then the 8th habit, where your passion, your experience, and your talent and skills come together. And in that intersection is where you're going to find success. So being in academia, I have the women read Who Moved My Cheese, and it's the Spencer Johnson's sequel to that, Out of the Maze, which talks about change, dealing with change, and who you are in the midst of that. I think knowing ourselves, who we are when things change, when things happen, how we react, and then once we know who we are and we can manage our triggers and things, it helps us with our confidence and understanding our value. Now our women go out, they know they're overcomers. They've overcome the biggest obstacle in their life with a personal problem. And now they can go out and show their value of being a problem solver, because nothing's going to be bigger than what they've already overcome. And so agencies, corporations, businesses look for problem solvers. And they become leaders because they gain a sense of confidence. And that's what we give everyone.
Great call to action, reminder. I've said that, having a past background in staffing too, that I've seen that be the differentiator and what makes people really stand out in the marketplace as employees and how they really propel in their career. So thank you for that wonderful message. How would you like for people to get a hold of you, Stacey, if they wanted to learn more about Every Woman Works?
You can always go to our website, and that is www.everywomanworks.org. A lot of people leave the S off of work, so everywomanworks.org. You can call our office directly. Our phone number is 770-998-3392. You can engage in our classes. We'll be offering online classes, so you can engage in whichever suits your learning differential. Everybody has differential learning styles. Some people like the classroom, some people like touch, and some people love the flexibility of online. So I'm going to be able to offer.
We'll take Stacey up on that, and certainly remember the S at the end of the website, and we'll be posting that on our website, chatwithleaders.com, as well as this episode through Apple Podcasts or wherever you consume your podcasts. We'll post it to all our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. @chatwithleaders is our handle. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve the show or add value to it, and Stacey, you just provided a tremendous amount of value today. You can email myself, Chris, and Tim at info@chatwithleaders.com. Stacey, what a pleasure it was to have you on today. Thank you for your gift of time.